Hi, everyone, and welcome to a mini lecture for film report number 6, our last one of the semester. Um, so there's not too much to say about this one. I think all the heavy work's kind of already been done, and we're just now kind of revisiting questions we've already asked in the past and trying to hopefully refine our answers a little bit. So I'm just going to quickly read the assignment here. Keep in mind that it's really the same assignment, which is to analyze the text in order to interpret it um, for cultural hegemony, or tell me what values, beliefs, ideas, and or behaviors are being promoted by the film, as well as the text that you can compare it with, and just likewise, what values, beliefs, ideas, and behaviors are critiqued or censored. Um, so that's what we're looking for. Keep in mind, ideology doesn't function by just coming right out and saying it. It's always some sort of hidden message, not even hidden so much as put out there to, as Boris puts it, to be consumed, not to be analyzed and critiqued, so that we just accept it as part of the way things are. Reification is what's going on there. So I'm just going to read the instructions. And again, like always, what I just said is the assignment. These are just some ideas that you might take into account. So for your final film report, I'd like you to revisit the conclusions you reached about myth earlier in the semester. Use the film The Fisher King to illustrate what a myth is and how it functions in modern society, or to demonstrate why myth is no longer relevant today. Use any myth from your text to compare and contrast in order to support your conclusions. For example, a myth that was relevant to society to contrast with the non-relevant myth today, or any variation thereof. Also, use the film to again define and illustrate the concept of the sacred. Tell me about a place or object that you personally find sacred, and compare and contrast that with sacred places and objects from traditional mythology, the Holy Grail, for example. Are there parallels in Are there parallels in the film with the original myth? I used to have. There's a typo in the film report I'm just seeing here. I used to have you just look at two Holy Grail myths. The other one called Excalibur, both in film. In this one, I'm just going to have you look at the original Holy Grail myth and use that as your compare contrast, and that's in your text. How does the sacred interact with and inform everyday reality? According to each film, what role does the sacred and the profane play in today's society? How has the idea of the sacred changed? So a few things. So again, what you're doing here, you're looking at a modern retelling of the Holy Grail story. So we're still in kind of the age of Christian mythology. So we're still seeing our Judeo-Christian heritage, but I think you'll see that obviously this story in this movie doesn't strike us as necessarily even being religious, even though it borrows from all of that mythology quite heavily and is quite literally a retelling of the Holy Grail myth. So that's what we're going to look at. How has our retelling of this myth, same thing we did if you look at Icarus and Daedalus, that story, how has the story changed to suit the cultural hegemony of our time? So I'll let you read more thoroughly about the original Holy Grail myth, but keep in mind there are a number of versions of this. The Mallory, Sir Arthur Mallory, the Mallory version is the most well known, but there are multiple ones. And the story of Parsifal, from whom Perry is taken here, was a character. He was kind of a jungle man. He was raised in the woods, thinking Enkidu, but he saw a knight passing by one day and was impressed by his heroic demeanor and decided he wanted to be a knight. So, against his mother's wishes, he left to join King Arthur's court. So left her crying and so forth. And then once he became part of the court, he set out to find the Fisher King and found this wounded king, the last in the line to watch over the Grail, too wounded to do anything, even to defend the Grail adequately. And when he first sees the Grail, he doesn't recognize it as holy or as a sacred thing, and there, ergo, does not ask the healing question. And so he fails, but later, realizing his mistake, he returns and in that version asks that question that's you'll see in the movie. So that's the one we're kind of that's the skeleton version of the one we're kind of comparing and contrasting in this. Some things you might think about. Is one is the subaltern. How is madness portrayed in this film? So the main character Perry is, you know, insane. Um, does the film allow insanity or madness to speak, or as it's usually done, does it only speak through the kind of through a psychologist, through some sort of therapist or theory that to explain those actions? So does this mythical retelling allow that subaltern voice to express itself? So another thing to think about is the two main characters, really all four, but I'm thinking of the two male characters in particular, although we could apply this to the females. So this is a romantic film. It's about relationship. What what prevents both characters from successfully loving, you might say? So they're kind of different ends of the spectrum. We can, with Jack, we can see quite easily it's his cynicism that really prevents him from connecting with his girlfriend. But it is this cynicism that doesn't allow him to think in terms of ideals or to think mythically at all. Whereas with Perry, maybe it's the other extreme. He too um, is having love problems. He can't connect with the object of his affection, um, but for, I think, very different reasons. And so, in a way, we might argue that in this film, both characters need each other, one to be grounded, one to be lifted up, so to speak, in order to find love and in order to transform suffering into love, you might say. Um, so this is a film. I have students who really, really like it, and some that don't. I think it's a interesting mixture of a really good film and some really corny bad stuff as well. But overall, I quite like it, so I hope you do as well. Don't know that I have too much more to say about it. There is an article, Retrieving the Grail. That's a good one. It's not an analysis. It's a review. It's a movie review, but there's a lot of material in there that can give you that's going to be used as fodder for creating your analysis, right? So again, I saw a little slip with film report number 4. 3, we really knocked it out of the park, most of you. With about 4, kind of, we came back down to earth. And a lot of you are doing a tremendous job of kind of describing the characters and what archetypes they fit and so forth. So that's sort of that mapping stage, but you didn't effectively go to that next stage, which is then to use that information to interpret cultural hegemony, right? What values are being promoted, et cetera, and so on. So you can do that with any of the topics we've dealt with thus far. For this film, you can analyze this for the messages about gender, if you want. I think that's there. Certainly, this film advocates for a certain social order, or rather, it critiques a certain social order. Um, in addition to the insane, does it give voice to the homeless? So it does at least focus on the most marginalized in our society quite often in this film. But we've seen that before being used for to reinforce hegemony. What about in this film? This is one of only 2 that I can really make a convincing argument that there might be some counter hegemonic elements in it. So look at that. So what is this film advocating, and in what ways is that either consistent or in contradiction to the the worldview that we live under? So beyond that, I can't think of anything else. It's been a pleasure. It's been a weird semester, and I would much prefer to be working in class. There's a lot more that we could do if we could be in class to do presentations and discussions. And I've done my best to get that information out in the discussion tab, but it's just not the same. Um, so um, but yeah, it's definitely been interesting, and I've really enjoyed the class. I enjoyed it more when I was seeing you all in person. Um, but I really hope you all have a great summer. So let's finish up strong. Let's everybody get A's and finish this weird semester out and stay healthy. And I hope to see you around in the fall or sometime beyond that. So as always, shoot me an email if you have any questions about anything. And if we need to arrange for a phone conversation, we can do that by all means. So thanks, everybody, and I'll hopefully see you soon.